Welcome everyone to this video on mindfulness for challenging times. My name is Sue Schneider. I'm with Colorado State University Extension. And there is no question that we are living through challenging times. But I want to say up front that we are a resilient species and we have a lot of tools to be able to work with whatever's coming up. So unquestionably, while we have the capacity to be calm and contented, caring and creative, in these moments of severe stress, our brains really get activated. We experience a lot of different emotions: fear and worry, anxiety and uncertainty. And what's happening to us is that we are actually getting triggered into a fight or flight state. So fear is a natural, intelligent response. It helps us get out of trouble. It helps us stay safe. But in situations like this, where there's a lot of chronic stress, our brains end up really staying in this fight or flight reaction for long periods of time. And it's not just something that's happening in our brain, it's actually happening in our bodies. Our bodies are getting activated. We have adrenaline and cortisol rushing through, and we all might be experiencing different physiological symptoms of stress that just play out really differently in our bodies. So I just want to put this in perspective that whatever we're experiencing is happening to all of us. It's completely normal. And there are some ways that we can actually diminish some of our suffering that's happening. So we are activated by these stressful events, these real current events, along with the responsibilities that we are having to carry, the life demands. These are all real. But what's happening is that we may be layering a lot of negative thoughts onto these stressful situations. We may be putting anxious thoughts there. We may be exacerbating our fear by thinking about what's going to happen or catastrophizing. We might even turn on ourselves and be judgmental about what we're not doing right in these situations. So it's important to note that this is the area within our control, that our negative thoughts actually are fueling our already activated minds, our already activated fight or flight response. And the argument that I want to make here is that our thoughts and our reactions, more than our circumstances, actually are contributing to our stress. So I want to point out some research on happiness to help situate this a little bit. We know that 50% of our ability to be happy is actually determined by our genetics. But what about the other 50%? Only 10% of our happiness is determined by external circumstances. That's a really small amount. The rest of that, 40%, is determined by our thoughts and our reactions and our actions. That's a large amount of control that we actually have over our capability of being happy. So if we're going to apply that to stress, we could argue that our thoughts and our reactions contribute a lot to how we relate to stress. We actually have a lot of control over how we shape our experience of difficulty, even if we cannot change our circumstances. So Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, has told us we don't get to choose our difficulties, but we have the freedom to select our responses. And I want to share a formula or an equation with you. I refer to this as the second dart. And this equation goes like this: suffering equals pain, or the initial difficulty, multiplied by our reaction or our resistance to that difficulty. So maybe in this case, the pain or the difficulty includes the loss of freedom you're experiencing because of this pandemic, the loss of a job or economic stability. People are suffering, they're getting ill, the loss of your own health or grieving, isolation, loneliness. There are so many different forms of pain. This is the first dart that's coming at us. and they're real. These first starts are real. But what's happening is that we have this reaction. We want things to be different. We want it all to go away. We push it away. We rush into change before it's appropriate. We might experience harmful, angry emotions and take it out on other people or ourselves. All of these things are considered the second and the third and the fourth darts. All of these things are considered our reactions to what's actually happening. And the question here is, can we at least become aware of some of those reactions? And if we can, we actually, according to this formula, we actually diminish our suffering. So our reactions to stress are real, and they may take the form of very specific things right now. We might be self-medicating or numbing, using substances or food or alcohol or even caffeine to try to manage or kind of diminish our, difficult emotions. We might seek distractions. We might be getting really busy. That might be through, watching the news or a lot of social media or even working obsessive hours just to distract ourselves. We might be also turning away from other people or not making ourselves available, not being willing to be vulnerable, or even not being nice to other people as a reaction. Or some of us might be overmanaging or trying to control whatever we feel like is in our purview to control. So these are all very normal reactions to stress. But if we situate those reactions within the second DART formula and take a look, what is it that is causing that? What is the pain that's at the heart of that, or the difficulty? Can we be with that? And how can perhaps we become a little bit more aware to some of those other habituated responses and maybe try to do some things a little bit differently? So perhaps we could respond instead of react to stress if we notice these behaviors before we act on them. And maybe some responses could be things like taking walks or stepping into nature. I'm sure many of you are doing this. We might even be willing to call a friend and say, hey, I need to talk this through, or ask for help, or even offer a friend help as a response to stress. We might practice prayer or other contemplative practices like meditation, where we can really practice letting go of some of these difficulties. We might get creative or immerse ourselves in hobbies. There are so many different ways we could respond to stress. But what it requires of us is really a pause and bringing some mindful awareness to what's happening before we move into those choices and behaviors. So mindfulness is literally bringing awareness into the moment, and it is a choice. We have that choice in every waking moment. So Thich Nhat Hanh tells us that mindfulness is a bell that reminds us to stop and silently listen. This is my favorite definition of mindfulness, because the key here is that we just have to pause. We have to pause, we have to observe what's going on, we have to notice what's happening in this moment. We have to be willing to slow down, right? And so there we can come back to presence, whatever's happening in this moment. So a definition offered by Jon Kabat-Zinn is that mindfulness is paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. And that's not always easy to do, but what it does require us to do is stop and notice. And oftentimes we are so hard on ourselves. So it's dropping the judgments, whatever's coming up, and our thoughts, whatever we have done in the past, being able to let go of that and just be present with whatever is going on, using curiosity, using really not trying to change anything, just becoming aware. So what do we do? How do we practice mindfulness? And I'm just going to suggest a few basic actions here. The first and most important thing is that we just have to stop. There's a wonderful acronym, the Mindful Stop. It tells us whatever we're doing, when we feel some nagging feeling coming up, we can just stop. We can take a few breaths. From that point, we can observe what is happening in my body. The body is the seat of the emotions, just taking notice. And from that point, we can actually then make a choice to proceed with something that might support us in the moment. It might be we need to step away from our work. We might need to go take a walk. We might need to pick up the phone and call someone. But the idea is that if we can bring a pause into the moment, we can actually make a choice of what it is that will support us next. The breathing part is amazingly simple, and it is incredibly beneficial. There are so many different breathing approaches. I'm sure you all know about a lot of these. Some of the ones I emphasize are the diaphragmatic breath, which is deep, long inhalations into the belly, and then exhalations through the mouth. Just doing a couple of those really calms the sympathetic nervous system. Dr. Andrew Weil popularized the 4-7-8 breath. You could Google this. It's an inhale for 4 breaths, hold for 7, and exhale for 8. And that long exhalation really slows things down. Another great option is the box breath. It's an inhale for 4, hold for 4, pause for the count of 4, and exhale for the count of 4. And all of these really help to slow our mental functions down, help us to relax, and again, really slow down that fight or flight response that's being triggered by our sympathetic nervous systems. So another really important technique is what Dr. Dan Siegel calls name it to tame it. And he argues that the amygdala is what's registering the strong emotions on the right side of the brain. And the left hemisphere actually makes sense of those strong emotions. So if we name whatever it is, fear, anger, sadness, on the left side of the brain, that neurotransmitters in the right hemisphere are actually being soothed. So this is such a powerful concept. You may usually, if the sadness is coming up, you may want to bury it, but this tells us name it. Just give it a gentle label, sadness, and breathe into it and just notice what happens, that it's actually calming down your brain. The other really critical component of working with some of these difficulties with mindfulness is the self-compassion break. We really tend to forget ourselves in these moments of difficulty. We may be working really hard to take care of other people, but what about ourselves? And we also may neglect ourselves because we feel like, gosh, I don't have it that bad. I still have my job. I'm not sick. And you're comparing yourself to other people. But we have to recognize we're all struggling here. We all need to practice self-compassion. So this self-compassion break is really neat. It's in three parts. It's saying 3 phrases to yourself. Number 1, this is a moment of stress, right? So this is the name it to tame it part, just identifying I'm feeling stressed right now. The second part is by saying stress is a part of life, or stress is a part of this pandemic, right? And what that does is acknowledge our shared experience. We are all part of common humanity. We're all suffering in this moment. And it takes us out of that sense of isolation and really gives us the idea that we're connected to a larger set of sufferings, which is, helpful and really soothing in these difficult times. And the third part of this is to say, may I be kind to myself, simply turning that compassion inward. You may put your hand on your heart. You may use phrases like, may I be well, may I be free from suffering, whatever it is, but turning that self-compassion onto yourself. The last suggestion I have here is that we really practice gratitude and we learn to seed positivity in our lives. A lot of us might be already doing this through things like 3 good things practice. So this might involve at the end of the day, you might lay down and call to mind what were 3 positive things that happened. They don't have to be huge. They can be that you noticed a flower blooming in your yard, or that you had a moment of connection with your sister or your grandmother or your grandson. And that alone can be really soothing. So Rick Hansen, a psychologist, suggests that we don't just pull up 3 things, we actually document them. And we don't just document them we actually sit with them. So maybe at night, after you've recalled them and documented them, you hold them. You hold them in your body. You actually relive them. You experience them. And he talks about this in terms of being able to turn experiential states into actual traits within our bodies, that the more we hold our gratitude within our bodies, we can actually see cellular changes. So I want to just make this distinction when we talk about gratitude practices, that we're not thinking ourselves happy or safe or less stressed. We're not doing positive thinking. What we're actually doing with the scanning and savoring and soaking process is actually called positive neuroplasticity. That all of these practices, taking our pause, taking our moments in the day, breathing, sending ourselves compassion, all of these things are powerful, powerful mindfulness practices that can help rewire our brains away from that negativity bias and all of that negative emotion and negative thinking towards a more positive state. So that's positive neuroplasticity. So I want to just leave you with 3 thoughts. Number 1, you're not alone. None of us are alone in this, and we're all feeling overwhelmed and fearful. And that's really important to remember. Number 2 is that we can bring awareness to whatever's happening, no matter how difficult it seems. We can name whatever's coming up for us. We can soothe the right hemisphere of our brains in doing that. And if we observe what happens and we're able to take that pause, we can then make really good choices that can support us in a very healthy way. And we can talk to people as well. That is another way of naming. The third piece of this is that self-compassion is not indulgent. It's actually really life-saving and critical right now. So practice self-compassion and practice gratitude regularly. So while there are a lot of things that feel and are out of our control right now, there are some things we have control over. And these are the things that I wanted to emphasize in this video. And I'll leave you with this: whatever you practice becomes stronger. So just practice a little bit every day and see what happens. And I really wish you well. If you are interested in some more mindfulness resources, I encourage you to go to larimerextension.org. There are some mindful self-care videos that I've put up there. There's an online program called Living Mindfully through CSU Online. And there are regular classes and workshops offered around mindfulness every single month. They're free and open to the public. And those lists are on larimerextension.org. And I wish you well.